The closer we get to the thing, like the X that marks the spot of where our fulfillment actually is or what we should be doing with our life and our purpose, we tend to run into all of this resistance, procrastination, gambling, eating, every single thing when we get closer to that thing that we know we should be doing.
And we're back
with another episode of He Said, She Said.
All right, babe. I've been starting these by prompting you with a glōci tip because glōci is crushing it. I also don't want to share the exciting news coming up. Don't worry, I'm not going to. I see you looking at me, but you have like a big revenue milestone coming up that I'm not going to share, but I'm just so damn proud of you. But it's just proof that revenue milestone is proof of how good this is working because your retention rate, your reorders are so freaking high. I can't believe it. They are mathematically unlikely. Let's put it that way. So obviously it's working. Give us a glōci tip. Why is it working?
Well, I am just going to shout out to the ingredient zinc because when we were looking for ingredients, we looked at a lot of ingredients for the skin, and zinc was one of the ingredients that helps you with skin tone. It can help with breakouts, and zinc not only does those things, but as a side effect of all of these things that we chose for skin, there's also a lot of wellness side effects. So, I had been sick this last week and I was loading up on glōci, and zinc is supposed to help also like shorten the duration of you being sick and also help build up your immune function. So it's help support your immunity. So zinc is something that not everybody takes all the time, but you should. And it's really great for your skin and your complexion.
Well, the before and afters are freaking awesome. I'm so proud of you. Sorry to always be the beaming, bragging husband, but I mean, this shit really works. It's crazy. And
you're like our number one customer.
I'm like their number one fan. Seriously. So,
and your sunspots look like away. They have lightened.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yes, he had this one really big one by his eye, and we're monitoring it, and it's almost gone. Now, so I don't know what that is, but the only thing you changed was glōci.
I haven't changed anything else other than glōci twice a day, sometimes 3. I just hide it from you.
Why are you doing 3?
I don't know. Why not? Okay, so guys, we have a huge, awesome, massive discount only for you guys, our podcast listeners. How much off? 20%?
25%
That's
with
huge.
code HAPPY.
25%
off your first order.
Massive off your first order. All you have to do is go to getglōci.com. That's GLOCI, getglōci.com, and use code HAPPY to get 25% off as our thank you to you for always listening and just being awesome advocates of the show and all that. We totally love and appreciate it. Okay. So today we thought we would talk about books. And I know it might be like, oh, lame. Why are you talking about books? Because they're such a big part of our life.
We're obsessed with books.
We're obsessed.
Lame.
And what made us think of it is, we're up at the lake house here. We haven't even been here a week yet. And it took us 5 days to drive up. And we listen to books and podcasts, but we listen to books every time that we go on these road trips. And we'll hit pause, we'll discuss them. We change things in our life. Like everything centered around consuming books on a regular basis is such an important part of our success. And it really boils down to, it's one of the main ingredients for us to have large intakes of what I call positive propaganda. Because from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're being hammered with negative propaganda, right? Bad news, people with bad mindsets around you, negative mindsets, scarcity mindsets.
Or just even comparison. Like even if you're looking at some positive things, sometimes
junk on social media.
It's so easy to just like compare yourself to everything. And that's actually exhausting for your brain.
Yep.
Because as you're looking at social media, what you're doing is you're literally asking yourself, like, where do I fall in accordance to this picture or this person or what they're doing?
Yeah.
And so everything is a decision, everything. Like, are they better than me? Am I better than them? Like, you don't even realize you're doing it but that is actually what humans are doing. And you're exhausted by the time you're off. So books are like a great way to learn, to not have all of this like negative output for yourself, even if you think it's, not doing anything. It's not a draining thing. It's actually a really recharging thing.
It really is. So we thought we'd share a couple of our favorites that have like radically changed our life every time that we've done them. Babe, why don't you go first? What's one of yours?
Okay, so this isn't necessarily like my favorite, but these are books that have impacted my life that I think it should be like required reading.
I think that's important to point out. My favorites are not the ones that have necessarily shifted my life the most. Some of them are. but they're the ones that have been caused integral shifts for us.
Yes. Okay. So this one is The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. And we read this together 3 years ago now.
On a road trip, driving up here.
While we were up here, we would play it on our walks around the loop. We call it the loop up here at the lake house because it's like once you're on the loop, you can't get off, and it's like 4.5 miles. So there's just farmland in between that you can't cross. So we would play it on this loop and listen to it. And I'm just going to give you some cliff notes of it. So the idea of the comfort crisis is that we are meant to do challenging, difficult things frequently. And if we don't as human beings, it's actually to our detriment. So in the book, they have something that is called misogi. I think it's misogi or misogi. It's either misogi or misogi. But the word misogi, I'm just going to read this right off here, comes from a Japanese Shinto practice of ritual purification. In the ritual, the participants wash their bodies in sacred waterfalls, lakes, and rivers. More recently, the word misogi means difficult challenges in nature. The aim is to clean off the contamination caused by modern conveniences. Now, to do a misogi, there are 2 rules, and this is what the book describes. And it is rule 1, make it really hard. And rule 2, don't die. So essentially in the book, Michael Easter, actually the author, chooses a misogi himself, and he goes on a 30-day elk hunting trip to Alaska. Now,
middle of nowhere.
Trust me. If you were telling me about this book before I read it and you're like, Lori, go read this 30-day hunting
not
trip,
interesting.
I would have been like, absolutely not. I am so glad Jackie Koch, my brother-in-law's girlfriend, talked me into this book because it is now one of my favorites. I've read it twice. I want to try to read it every single year to remind myself how important it is to do challenging things. So the whole book intertwines story with scientific facts around why human beings actually have to do hard things for our health, our well-being, and our mental health. So it's one of those books that like you start reading it and you immediately are going to set a goal after, or you're going to go buy a rucksack, which literally we did because he talks about rucking. And if you don't know what a rucksack is, it's like a weighted backpack. And he talks all about like creating these little mini misogis in his life. And the reason for that is that if you go and challenge yourself and you do these hard things, when you go back to normal life, everything seems easier. Your brain has worked out so many of the excuses that you want to make, or so many of like these negotiating with yourself, because you are doing this thing in real life that you're going to go and translate to everything, whether it's business or relationships. And the book really, really, really goes into why that is.
Yeah, I love that. That book has changed my life too, because when we started doing tougher things again intentionally, then the rest of our life started seemingly feeling a lot easier. And the truth is, we get soft. I'm sure most of you listening have gotten soft. The world has gotten soft, and we're not meant to be that way. We're meant to do hard things to make the normal everyday things not feel so damn hard. And that's the irony in it all.
Hey y'all, if you didn't know, Earn Your Happy is now a part of the Growth Day Podcast Network. This is so exciting to me because I have been looking for a really good home for the show for, I can't even tell you, years, literally. And now I've finally been able to come together and collaborate with other people who have incredible shows, and I want to share them with you. One of the shows is Motivation with Brendon Burchard. And you guys, if you don't know about the beginning of my career, I literally started with Brendon Burchard's work. It's how I launched one of my very first online courses and membership sites, was because he gives so much advice that you can integrate and implement immediately. And that's what you're going to get on the show. Not just motivation, but you're going to learn exactly how to get your stuff out in the world. And not just that, but Brendon runs in the most incredible group of humans who are really doing the thing out in the world that you want to be doing. So go check it out. Go subscribe to Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I promise you, this is going to be one of those shows that no matter when you tune in, you're going to get value. Like, it's not one of those that you're like, God, I listened for 30 minutes and I didn't get what I wanted. Like, from the beginning, you're going to get something that changes your life or changes your business. So go check it out. Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I know you're going to love it. I'm obsessed.
Okay, so if you were going to ask me, hey, what's one of yours, Chris? I would say any autobiographies or biographies of awesome entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm hooked. My favorite way to learn is not like, here's the 7 steps to this, or here's the 5 rules of that. There's value in that, don't get me wrong, but I learn through reading the stories of the ups and downs and the types of decisions that some of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world have had to make. So from the Steve Jobs book to the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, to the 2 different Elon Musk books, to Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity, I recommend every single one of those and more. Now, if I had to choose one, for me in particular, it's Elon Musk's original biography called Musk. And here's why. In there, you realize the significant risks that this man took after he was already successful, not just on his way to being successful. And it frames for you what it means to go all in. For example, he was one of the original creators of PayPal. And when they had their exit, he had over $300 million. And he could have just hung it up right there and been like, all right, yay, I've got a very wealthy life. But then he went on to start Tesla and SpaceX at the same time. And he burnt through that $300 million to the point where he was asking friends if he could stay on their couches and begging friends for money to make payroll at those companies on a Sunday night, or they were going to go bankrupt on Monday.
Oh my God.
So how many of you think, oh, I'm taking some risk right now. Ooh, I'm really going for it. No, you're not. Like, this is why I love these books. It really frames what going for it looks like. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to these extremes, but it sure as hell puts into perspective that you may not be entertaining and playing in enough risk, right? You're afraid to make that investment. You're afraid to make that hire. You're afraid to go to that mastermind. You're afraid to host your own event. You're afraid to put the money down on, whatever type of investment it is you're considering. And then you hear about a man whose life is totally set up and had $300 million and got to the point where he was so passionate about starting these other 2 companies that he was sleeping on his friends' couches and had literally not a penny to his name, because it was all taken and then some. And you just combine that with when they describe his work week and the fact that he didn't take a single vacation for 12 years. Again, I'm not advocating that. What I'm saying is all of these perspectives put your hustle, put your business journey into a real perspective of it's not that bad. And there's more you could be doing. And your goal may not to be the world's richest man. It's not my goal. But if you are a tenth of 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 a tenth as successful, that means all you have to do is take, a tenth of 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 the risk that he took to get to that level. And you realize, holy crap, I can do that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I love those biographies, and especially that one. What's one more for you?
Okay, so one of my other favorite books is Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art. Do not get The Art of War. That's a very different book.
I like that one, by the way.
The War of Art. And this is all about resistance. So the idea of the book is, a quote from the book is, most of us have 2 lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the 2 stands resistance. And one of my other favorite quotes from the book that really summarizes it well is, rule of thumb: the more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel towards pursuing it. So he talks all about how the closer we get to the thing, like the X that marks the spot of where our fulfillment actually is, or what we should be doing with our life and our purpose, we tend to run into all of this resistance. And he goes on in the book to explain what resistance is. I mean, he goes in depth of like procrastination, gambling, eating, sex, like every single thing and how we're using it when we get closer to that thing that we know we should be doing. Like, oh, should have a hard conversation? Screw it. Maybe I'll go out to the bars. Like it's the mindset right before and during, and he really helps you like dig in and understand those moments that it's not just you avoiding it, it's because you're getting close. And I think that when we reframe it like that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm right here. When the resistance is as big as it can possibly feel, that means that I truly am on the verge of a breakthrough. But the way that he frames it, you really start to understand how and why, like with our brain chemistry.
I love that. The fact that you just described what most of us do as humans, right before we're supposed to do a tough thing, what do? We quickly resort to the dopamine hit.
Oh my God, you'll like pick up your phone.
Yep.
You'll be like, oh, I should do this. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll scroll 5 more minutes. Like, what?
Yep.
What is that doing? It's delaying.
1,000,000 times a day, you guys. And that's why you don't seem to get ahead, is we keep choosing the dopamine hit over right moments before you're about to finally go do that scary or tough or annoying thing that you know you have to do to move the ball forward. So I love that. If I had to add one more to the list, I can't just add one more. There's so freaking many. I read 30 books in 30 days. So obviously I've got a lot of books, that was years ago, that I want to recommend. But I would say it's a tie between Conversations with God or Tuesdays with Maury. And I love those 2 books because they'll both give you perspective on how to live a great life. They're 2 very different books. Very different books. But, Conversations with God really does a great job. Anyone who has either religious trauma or uncertainty, or they just think that religion doesn't make sense, it's a fantastic book to put all of that into perspective. And it really takes a lot of anxiety or worry, a lot of what you think, this rule or that rule, it really puts a lot of it into perspective.
Or it just makes you think. Like even some of it, you and I are like, not sure, but it sure made us think and feel better.
Yep. So that one, but then I'd almost have to lean towards Tuesdays with Maury, which is a great true story about Mitch Albom. If you guys know who that is, one of the most famous sportscasters out there and newscaster, and just incredibly famous, successful individual. And he went to college. He had a professor named Professor Mitch. And the story kind of unfolds how he was really close to this professor. They swore they'd always stay in touch. And then multiple years go by, like more than a decade goes by. And Mitch gets famous, Mitch gets rich, Mitch gets busy, and he never kept his promise to go back and visit Maury. Sorry, the professor is Maury. Mitch is obviously a sportscaster. And so then all of a sudden he sees on the news that Maury is terminally ill, literally on they're doing a news story on it. He's like, wait, that's my old professor. I promised to stay in touch with this guy. So he reaches out. Don't worry, I'm not giving you any spoiler alerts here yet. He reaches out, gets back in touch, and it starts this weekly dialogue between the 2 of them where he literally flies to visit him every week. And it's that dialogue that has so much value. All the questions he asks this old man about perspective and life and everything. And it's not only the individual dialogue on a weekly basis that adds so much value to you, the reader, as perspective about life, but the whole story drives home the point that you have to put your loved ones or those you care about first and build everything else around that. And if you don't, a decade's going to slip by, 2 decades are going to slip by, and you're going to have a bunch of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And I'll tell you what, this was the very first book I read when I read 30 books in 30 days. And I think that was somewhere in the ballpark of 2015. I'd have to go look it up. I'm bad with years. But it was the shake by the shoulders that I needed to make sure I was putting family first. And that's what started the family date days. That's what started making sure that we're buying lake homes and everything else. And then when my dad passed away in 2020, one of the amazing things, and I know it's a weird thing to say, was I didn't have any shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Because thanks to this book and many other things, I made putting my loved ones and creating experiences with them first. And this book played a big role in that. It really reminds you in a wonderful storytelling kind of way to do that. So I highly suggest Tuesdays with Maury. Oh, one more shout out to our buddy Mel Abraham and his new book. Guys, go get this one too. Building Your Money Machine. Seriously, just go to Amazon, type in Mel Abraham, Building Your Money Machine. It's an awesome book when it comes to simplifying your finances. So if you struggle with finances, it's a great book to go get. All right, guys. Well, listen, whether you grab the 4 or 5 books that we talked about or whether you go find some of your own, it's changed our life. And it's one of those simple things that you can do a little bit every day that will radically change your life. And I was not a reader. Until I read 30 books in 30 days. You guys, if you're like, oh, I'm not a reader, I don't think I could do this. When I say I wasn't a reader, I had not finished a book cover to cover as an adult until I read 30 books in 30 days when I was in my mid-30s. That's messed up. But ever since then, my life has got exponentially better. And that's why we figured we'd do an episode about books. Also, one quick reminder, we have one room left, one spot left, whether you're an individual or whether you're a couple, to come with us on our mastermind in Europe, in Florence, Italy, in October, travel with Lori and I and our friends Rob and Kim Murgatroyd and some really awesome high-performing other entrepreneurs. Literally only one room left. Those went really quick.
It's like helicopter rides, wine drinking,
yes,
networking,
private shutdown tours of the Duomo, like everything. Dinner with the Ferragamos, the famous Ferragamo fashion brand, those Ferragamos, that family. Like, just access to stuff you can't get on your own. Once in a lifetime experience. So if you want to grab that last spot, go to chrisharder.me. That's chrisharder.me. chrisharder.me/Italy. Grab that spot or just DM us and ask us questions. We'd love to answer your questions about it and then help you get that very last spot. chrisharder.me/Italy. Can't wait to see who the very last couple or the very last person is that we travel. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Love and appreciate you.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, I know if you're listening to this podcast that you have big dreams and big goals. And one of the things that can really stop you is struggling with your marketing. Trust me, I have been there. Are you using 10 different systems just to build your online business? Then I want you to try Kajabi. Kajabi helps you build your web pages, set up funnels, and sell your courses, content, coaching, or communities. You've been hearing me talk a lot about funnels on this podcast and the importance of your email list. You can get a free trial at kajabi.com. That's Kajabi.com. I've talked about Kajabi before, but here's something that's super cool and new. They just rolled out an AI assistant for creating your online course curriculum. And this means you just type in a topic that you want to create on a course or webinar and bam, it just generates a sample outline for you. It takes a ton of the hard work away. Of course, you're going to customize it to be your own, but this really helps you get over the struggle of how in the world to start, which is where most people stop. If you're like me, starting is always the hardest part, and that's what makes Kajabi so popular. They've made it easier for creators to build web pages, build courses, build coaching programs, build membership sites, build checkout pages, and build email funnels. So if you're struggling with any of those, you got to go check it out. Go to Kajabi.com. Kajabi was really the first all-in-one system and is trusted by over 100,000 creators. I think that's good enough for me. Also has influencers and marketers who use this. And now their smart AI platform makes it easy to take what you know and turn it into an online course and business. Go start building with a free trial at Kajabi.com. That's Kajabi.com.